Hello everyone, this is Space Café Podcast, and I am Markus. So, ready to dive into part 2 of our mini-series on HERA, the joint mission between NASA and ESA to deflect an asteroid from its trajectory? Well, as we know, NASA has already completed its part of the mission last year. The DART spacecraft took a one-way trip to Didymos, a near-Earth asteroid located between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, and its moonlet Dimorphos. To give you a sense of the distance, at its closest approach to Earth, Didymos is about 4.9 million kilometers away. So if you turned on your flashlight on Didymos, the light would reach Earth only about 16 seconds later. Impressive, right? So what was the outcome of that first leg of the mission? In short, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, aimed to demonstrate the kinetic impactor technique by altering Dimorphos' orbit around Didymos. And, of course, as we know today, it worked. DART successfully altered the moonlet's orbit, validating this technique as a viable method for planetary defense. But still, lots of questions remain unanswered. What exactly happened after the collision? Is there a visible crater? What is the asteroid made of? Solid rock, or is it as soft as marshmallow, as observed in other missions? Could this asteroid be more than just a pile of space rubble? Enter the upcoming HERA mission by ESA, set to illuminate these mysteries and slated for launch next year. HERA won't be traveling alone though. It carries 2 CubeSats, Milani and Juventus, with Milani constructed by a company named Tyvak. Joining me today at ESA's testing center in the Netherlands to discuss the next steps for the mission is Margherita Cardi, Vice President of Programs and Program Manager for the HERA Milani satellite.
If you are also aiming at including, any personal question about my path towards here,
Absolutely.
Feel free.
Super.
If it's too personal, I will stop you.
You say stop.
Yeah.
Don't expect just a simple technical rundown of our mission. Our conversation may take some unexpected turns, as they often do on this show. Please prepare to be intrigued, my friends, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Please note that Margherita had literally just stepped off the stage from engaging with some of the world's leading asteroid experts before we started recording this session.
Thanks for taking the time in the first place.
Thank you for proposing that, actually.
It's absolutely. So now you should be kind of relaxed because you had your speech already.
Yeah, it was very short. I don't know if you followed that. I saw you in the audience. So
I totally followed it. And before that, during the coffee break, you told me I should give you feedback.
Yes, that's
Are you ready for it?
I told you, if I'm bad, don't tell me, but it was a joke because, let's say, feedback are always welcome. We have to grow and to improve. Yeah. So whatever you think, I'm ready, even if we are live.
You know what's really interesting? We're all professionals and still we're getting nervous when we're going on stage because you made such a professional appearance. I'm wondering, you haven't done that for the first time and still you're nervous. So why do you think that is?
So I think that it depends also on the audience. So if you are surrounded by prepared people, professional people on your domain.
The ones that know your weaknesses.
The ones that might know your weaknesses, they might spot, the only one moment of hesitation you will have, or the moment that a word is let's say, not perfect, etc. So this is, I'm more comfortable typically when I don't know anybody, so that there is no expectation, no hype. But even in these cases, I think that going to stage is just you are totally exposed.
Yes.
No matter what the subject is, no matter how confident you are exposed.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's a matter of practicing. The more you do, the less nervous you might feel at the beginning. But I think that anyway, even if you sleep well at night and you have a good breakfast, etc., the very few minutes before you go, it's always tense.
Yeah.
And typically I have headache after because all the
it's all the blood pressure.
Yeah, exactly. This comes whether either I did a 2 minutes speech, either I did a 15 minutes or a panel discussion. After that, I typically have this consequence. So now I'm prepared. I know that, and yes, I think that it's kind of unavoidable. You just start practicing that, and the more you do, the better you become. But you never finish, so it will be always the same.
It's the same for me as well.
Really,
I used to be a television presenter, a TV host, so I should be chill when it comes to speaking in front of audiences, but still it's a tense moment because there is potential, the possibility of failure. Of course, you're exposed, but at the same time, I think this tension is also necessary to focus. I don't know about you. You get this right the seconds before you get this tunnel vision and you're like
need to
razor sharp focused, and that's something good.
Yeah.
That's good about it.
Yes. I agree.
Anyway.
The podcast is the first time, to be honest. Maybe this is, let's say, more informal. And so maybe it's not that tense as moment. But when it comes to public speaking, so if you have a stage and also how the room is made, right? If you have a real stage like a theater and you are elevated with a big screen, etc., you feel in a way. If you are in a university room, maybe you are more comfortable. So it really depends. Yeah. But yes, it's tense anyway.
It is.
Yeah.
So how important was your speech? Were you risking something today?
No, I wouldn't say that. To be completely honest, this is a kind of a workshop that is mainly focusing on science. And so my original thought was to leave the floor to the scientists. So in my mission, we have 3 payload. And so 3 persons that can really speak about science behind the instruments. And so I wanted them to have, the main floor and be able to share details and where they are. But then yesterday I arrived here in Aztec and let's say someone told me, okay, but you should, introduce that. You should speak even 2 minutes about who you are, who your team is, because maybe not the full community knows you. And it's important that we fill this gap between industry and science. Of course, during the project, we are doing that. But let's say it's limited to the different, Milani is a CubeSat with some instruments, and so we are establishing this connection, etc. But when it comes to the HERA community, there is a lot of persons involved that maybe I never met before. And it's true, I don't know a lot of persons during this conference. So I thought about that and I say, okay, maybe I could say a couple of words and make everybody understanding what we are doing and what we did in the last years, because I realized that most of the people don't know that.
Absolutely.
And so yesterday night, I didn't really sleep that much because I was preparing this presentation. It was really brief. You saw that it was 2 or 3 slides with all the models, and I have to send the messages in few minutes. And I think it was nice. Maybe I stole sometimes to the scientists, and I hope not that much. But it was very good to present the status of our mission. But I wouldn't say it was a risky presentation today, because I was literally added in the corner. At the very last moment, I decided to say some words about that, and I'm glad I did, because it was nice.
Wonderful. And why don't you share details about the mission with us?
Sure. So the mission itself, again, is born to support the HERA mission. So we are all there to enhance and improve the scientific results. And so the CubeSat is a self-standing satellite at the end, and it brings its own payload, and it aims at measuring things that will help the scientific community. So that's the main goal, and we have 3 payloads. One is an hyperspectral imager, so we are basically doing pictures of the asteroid in specific spectral channels to see some details that the community is interested in. We have a dust detector. It has a most complex name, but dust detector is the one I'm able to pronounce without error. It's a thermogravimeter, whatever. But
would it be useful for the average household?
It's that small that I don't think it should be useful for that.
As a commercial for vacuum cleaners.
It's really small. It's a 90 grams instrument. This is a sensor, completely passive, and the aim is to see if some dust particles will be posed to the sensor, and we will be able to measure some properties of the particles. So the aim is to understand what's the environment around the asteroid after the Dart impact. So this is another piece of information that is really interesting for the community. And then we have the navigation camera that is aiming at, again, do the navigation. So it's kind of a hybrid between a platform, a system, and a payload. But we are also doing some interesting measurement with these items. So these are the three main instruments, and the mission started in a plenty pandemic period, so 2020. Yeah, I remember.
So how is that? I mean, like, how is work still possible under those circumstances? Because, I mean, remote work is, if you have to build something, remote work can be quite tricky, I guess.
Yeah, correct. So I still remember when the ESA tender was released, and it was February 2020, maybe the worst month of the last years on the COVID situation. But still, we wanted to be there. We wanted to bid and to compete, and so we decided to do that anyway. And I have to be honest, we did some home office, so smart working for very few weeks. And of course, the A&T team and operations team in Tyvak International was allowed to go in the office. At that time, we were just 20, so there was not a big number to manage. We could really ensure all the proper measures of safety and distances without much problems. And for just 3 weeks, we did some shift, and only the operations guys and the A&T guys were allowed to be in the office.
A&T being?
Sorry, yeah, you're right. Assembly, integration, and test. So it's the moment where the satellite hardware is on the table and you have to test it and build it. So, of course, this cannot be done remotely. So I was working on the proposal, and this, to be honest, was something possible to be done from home. And so this last very few weeks, as I was saying, and after we all came back in the office gradually, but again, we were 20, so there was not this big number to manage. We had the space and distances were safe. And also the aerospace sector was kind of a strategic sector for Italy, so it was not one of the places that were mandatory closed in that period, let's say. So the proposal period lasted 2 or 3 months, something like that. And I remember the last 2 weeks, we were like, a full team of 10 persons working only on that for full time until the submission. It was a very tough proposal because we were very late. I mean, this project was starting, let's say, after the approval of the HERA, etc. There was already a CubeSat on board. So we were the last one. We had to do a proposal which was already kind of a design phase to some extent. So it was tough also in a documentation preparation point of view. And I remember we submitted the 27th of May 2020.
That was great.
Yes, I remember this date. And it was 5 a.m. in the morning. We were destroyed. And someone said, my CTO said, okay, guys, if this is going to come, I mean, if we are going to win that, he will be kind of a mess because we already understood the level of complexity and level of challenges of this mission. And someone said, okay, I hope this enters on one side, but on the other side, I already know it will be a mess. And actually, when we were called for the negotiation meeting, and so we were in the last process of winning the contract, we were excited and terrified at the same time because there was a big step for us in front of us. There was a big challenge, but we used that in order to do a very big jump. So let's say this is how this born years ago. And after 3 years, more than 3 years, we are now 60 persons, and we are integrating the flight unit. We developed 3 models of this spacecraft. We learned a lot, and ESA was extremely supportive in this mission. I mean, it was a really nice opportunity to learn and grow up the team. So I saw persons really getting experienced and very competent on the domain.
So what's the learning people could take away from this, from that moment when you were confronted with the next to impossible mission, and still you're sitting right across from me right now after successfully implementing everything? So the next to impossible has become possible. So what's the learning we can take away from this?
The learning is that, let's say, no matter how hard something seems at the beginning, it's not a one-man show. It's a team effort. It's a combination of talent, competence, willing to achieve a goal. And so if you have the objective really clear in front of you, no matter how complex it is, you will get the right instrument when you need it. And this helped me as a program manager, also in the development of new business. Before, I was more afraid of things that sounded to me complex or too challenging, or it's not the right moment for us. Sometimes it's true, but the majority of the times is just I would say kind of a limit that you pose to yourself. And so you have to face the reality, that's true. But these challenges are, boosting everything up.
And bringing you to the next level.
Yes, you need that. And an important thing that I've learned is that maybe you think you don't have the instruments to do that now, but you will get it. Because otherwise you wouldn't have win this contract. So that's something that reappeared a couple of times during these 3 years on other things. And that's my personal, let's say, lesson identified. And also in front of us, we have another big mission that I'm quite scared about. And I don't know if it will be continuing. But I say myself, I felt the same when Milani came. So, and we are making it, at least. So I shouldn't worry that much now, let's say, at least.
So what's the current state of Milani?
So Milani, now we are, as we speak, the team in Torino is building the flight unit. So we have built multiple models to make sure that all the interfaces were validated along these 3 years. And it was an incremental complexity, let's say. And this was every time to reach a piece of information that was useful towards the flight unit, which is, of course, our final goal. And now all the flight hardware is there, except one unit that will be delivered next week. So we are pretty, let's say, there. And we are doing all the pre-integration testing on the flight hardware. And we are targeting to build the spacecraft and deliver to ESA within the end of the year, January, the worst case. I mean, early next year. So that's very tough. Of course, the next year is not a hands-off. We are keep supporting the HERA system level testing because we will be there. And so there are some HERA system level testing that will happen before the delivery to the launch site. And so we will be there to support and to operate the spacecraft as needed. And then there will be the delivery to the launch site around the summer next year before the launch. So yeah, long story short, we are integrating the flight unit as we speak in this moment. So it's a very crucial moment for the team.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
so
you.
far.
Thank you. Actually, my plan was to come here at the conference with some of the team because, of course, as we started in plenty pandemic period, we didn't have really the chance to travel a lot at the beginning. And I had the chance to know a lot of persons in this last month that travels were, restarted again. But the team had less opportunities. So my original plan was to, let's say, to bring them with me. But again, I was mentioning there is that much going on, and I am less needed in clean room than they are.
But
I accept that.
You're making a very relaxed impression. So maybe you're doing a great job as a vice president.
Well, I don't know. I usually panic when things happen. So I recently discovered that my team has a parallel teams chat when I'm not involved. So that if they have to talk about something that is happening, like an issue or something that they are, kind of doubting about, they know that if I read it, I will immediately, worry and alarm and warning. So I'm working on that, but they had found this, other way to be free to talk about things without my involvement. So I'm sure that they are pressed and they are under pressure constantly. And of course, I have to work to make the objective clear and to make the daily, frictions and issues and fightings that are always happening, let's say, part of the game, but, part of a big game that we are involved in. So I always try to make sure that the clear objective is there. So I was sharing picture of the conference with them today to make them feel part of the community, even though, again, they are not here, but just to try to keep them involved. But yeah, I hope I'm doing a good job. The team might be more adequate than me in let's say telling that. But yeah, I am also working on my let's say tendency to panic a little bit when things are not going in the right direction, because now it's a crucial phase. We are about to deliver, so everything for me seems like can be a showstopper, can be a big issue, and so I tend to think about the worst case because of my work. It's natural, but I'm trying to filter that because the team needs to be driven and not be panicked by me. So I'm trying to do my best in that.
I'd love to learn something from you, from your experiences, when it comes to our approach, our understanding of what work means, because now you're talking about the extreme pressure that your team is under, that you are under, but still you make the appearance to me that you still love your job, that you still like your work. At the same time, I don't know about Italy, but in Austria, we're talking about reducing the overall workload. So 4 days work and 3 days off and whatnot on a regular basis. It's just being debated publicly on a political level. So the question is, how do you see all this? Is it the pressure? Is it the workload that is an issue? Or is the meaningful bit about one's engagement the key element? So you still love your stuff, although it's extremely tight and dense. So how do you mitigate?
The balance?
What's the balance? And why do you still do your job?
That's a good question. So let's see. The first thing, it's yes, we are under pressure, and yes, we are working a lot. Even though we are very careful about balancing the hours, we don't want people working 20 hours in a row. They have to rest, etc. So,
what does it mean? Is it like 60 hours per week or 50 hours?
Yeah, so our rule, let's say, it's 80 hours every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it can happen to make a night shift. It can happen to make a Sunday because of a particular deadline. So this happens pretty regularly, I would say. But then we make sure that this person, gets the good rest and recovery after that. So this is, in some way pretty flexible, and that Tyvak is working pretty well. I personally work a lot, as all my team. But in this particular mission, I have to say that the engagement level is crazy. So crazy in a good sense. So being part of such a challenging mission, even if for 2 years we didn't really meet people and go into events, so maybe it's difficult to breathe it a little bit, right? Because you are just online, you might not get it. But the ESA work in doing in transforming the HERA project into a family was fabulous. So the HERA team involved in the ESA team working in this project made an amazing job in building a community. And so everybody at all levels is feeling part of a family.
Why is that? What's the secret sauce behind that?
Well, I'm trying to stall that from ESA because I don't know how they made it. I'm trying to do the same with my team, of course, in a scaled level. And I remember I was invited in the APL last year for the DART Impact event.
What is APL again?
The APL is the Applied Physics Laboratory at the Johns Hopkins University, in the US. And we were there during the DART Impact to attend it and to celebrate it later. And I was alone from my team, but the full team was connected, even if it was like in the middle of the night in Italy. And I was sharing pictures, I was sharing the videos over there, and I saw the team that was, excited anyway. And so I think that I could really use something that I saw on the ESA team and trying to do the same on the towards my team. And also, since I now have the chance to meet a lot of scientists and a lot of persons that are members of the communities on the working groups, etc., every time that there is an article on the asteroid from ground-based observation or paper published, I always flow down that to the team to say, hey, this is keeping going, and you are part of that, so you have to remember this. And
so you would do that as a leader. So you would proactively communicate.
Yes, I am doing that. I'm doing that. And even besides that, I'm trying to celebrate all the small achievements that we have. So, for example, the Steam delivery, I spoke about that this morning, was tough for us. We had some issues along the program, and the Steam was one of them. And finally, when we made it, after a lot of effort, the team worked constantly in the last month. Once we delivered that and we integrated that into HERA and everything was good, I make like a very small, refreshment, how you call it, in the company, and gave a very small speech saying, thank you, everybody, you are part of this, and thanks for your time and for your efforts. So these are some things that I learned a good leader should do to keep the pressure when it's the moment, but to also thank the team when it's the right moment and keep them aware about what they are part of, because the daily task can be tough, boring sometimes. Something is not working and you have to insist on that. So if you are focused on your daily work, as we all are, you might lose the view of the final objective. So since I have it very clear in my mind, I always repeat that to the team, and I hope that this is getting some boost and some engagement and motivation to keep working as they are now.
What's the team size?
So the core team. So I have 2 systems engineers that are full time on that, but in this moment I have roughly 20 persons working on the project. So they are not necessarily 20 full time every day, but let's say they are all supporting the good flow of activities. So I have software engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, ANT, which is the assembly, integration, and test. This is the main figures I have involved. The GNC, which is also crucial, which is the guidance, navigation, and control. And so again, I would say 15 people working full time and 23 if we count, spot supports. Also, when we do the shift, you need more person to allow the good recovery, etc. So that's more or less the size. And considering that we are 60, this is a good number of persons.
So celebrating success is critical, important, is sometimes overlooked and important to do. How do you go about issues? How do you go about problems, either with a project or with employees?
Okay, so as I was saying, the issue are part of the game. And recently, again, the CTO of the company, that is a person that I really admire, told me ANT is not assembly, integration, and test. It's solving problems during assembly, integration, and test, and you have to face it. And so, because again, I was panicking, but in the ANT, this panic was like 3 times per day. And so he brought me in a conference room and in a meeting room and say, okay, hey, let's face it. The next month will be like that. So we cannot react in this way every time, because sometimes the issue is stupid. And for you, it seems a lot, but it's stupid and we can solve it. And so I understand it. And actually, I have experience in that because I was part of the ANT team at the beginning of Tyvak. So I know that. But again, that's my personal stuff. I'm working on that. But when there is the issue happening, now I understood that in the immediate moment that an issue is happening, we have to focus on that. So pragmatically, what's the issue? What could be the solution? And sometimes I always have to remind, you have to pretend you have infinite money and infinite time, because this gives you the freedom to understand what's the technical solution to this problem. Then I have to jump and say, okay, we don't have infinite money.
Here's the solution. How do we get there?
Yes, exactly. So there are 2 extremes. So there are the one side that is, again, infinite money, infinite time. What would you do in this case? Then I jump in, I put my limits on the programmatic point of view, and then we work to find a common ground. This is for the technical issues. And of course, I have also an engineering management team, which are the senior engineers of the company that jumps in when the issue seems not, very, small, trivial, but needs to be discussed also with a more experienced person. So I have them supporting every time we need. This is very good. This is happening on Milani, but on all the projects. So we are speaking about this mission, but this is done across all the programs. But it's true that during these periods, we also have to face human relations issues because the pressure is high. The schedule is tight, and so it happens that sometimes the team is getting frictions. And so again, when I and I think that on that part, I'm quite able to understand if something is traveling around some persons, and maybe there is something I don't know, but I'm just spotting from a word, from something. So sometimes it's just you are tired and that day is a bad day. Sometimes there is a real clash between some persons. And so I let things pass. I try never face that in that moment because it's a hot moment. But then maybe the day after or 2 days after, I try to speak with the different persons and try to understand what's happening. Sometimes it was just a bad day. So no need for any, investigation or real effort.
It's usually good to sleep it over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not react immediately, not write emails right away.
No. That's something I've learned on my skin. Let's say, never react suddenly. I used to do that in the past.
Out of impulse.
Yes, and it is never a good idea. If this impulse is still there after your night, it means that needs to come out. Otherwise, it's not needed. And so I learned how to say in English. When you have you see something that is starting flaming.
Boiling?
Yes. You have to just wait, take distance, and come back to that. And this is also real for technical issues. Sometimes you lose hours and you are not figuring it out. I say, okay, you know what? Take your time. Go home. Tomorrow morning you will know how to handle that. And actually, it's a good advice. Something that we have learned along the years. Sometimes you don't have the time to and the luxury to, let's say, to wait a night. And so maybe some external person that didn't really get involved up until now can give you a good input. Yes, exactly.
Very interesting. I was in the audience during that meeting, and I was watching my neighbors and people sitting and listening to the speeches. And usually in audiences, you would see people play on their smartphones or play on their computers. And I was watching what they were playing with. And no one was doing bullshit stuff on their computers or smartphones. So it seems like there's a community that's like really into what's going on. And it's been a very intense day so far because it's been a couple of hours of presentations.
Yeah.
Usually we get tired, decaffeinated and whatnot, under sugar.
Traveling, early flight, someone.
Exactly. And still, I wouldn't spot a single person doing
bullshit
on their smartphone. So I would like to try to analyze this a little more because I think on a global scale, we have myriads of problems. We have lots of challenges to solve. It seems like when it comes to climate change, for example, we cannot get going on a political level for whatever reason. For a science mission like this one, it seems like you can get hundreds, thousands of people behind you and motivate them. As ESA, as NASA, Elon can do it. So the question is, because I have a little project going with CERN, the particle physics place, and ESA also, where we are bringing industry representatives from a variety of industries that have nothing to do with the space industry or the particle physics industry to learn from big science, to learn how good project management works, to learn how to build up different mindsets. Because I think that in order to overcome our challenges or start overcoming our social and economic and environmental challenges, we need to start shifting our mindsets. And I have the impression that it's worth giving it a shot to look at how big science is doing it. Because big science has been delivering so far. If you take a look at the big space agencies or the particle physics guys, decades of successful work, Nobel laureates and whatnot. So there must be some sort of secret sauce behind it. And I was wondering, you've been working in that industry, in the space industry now for a couple of years. I was wondering, also, the DART mission is part of the HERA mission. That's the NASA people. Is there something you could maybe share with me now where you would say, hey, this is an interesting pattern where like civil society could benefit from, leaders could benefit from, or companies could benefit from when it comes to solving our very mundane or very different problems? Is there something that could be inspirational, maybe? I know it's a huge question.
Yeah, it's a huge question, and the answer is not simple. So, talking about what you spotted about the persons focused on that, of course, this is a particular context. Everybody is from the community, and they are all very interested in what has been presented. So, I was also surprised that nobody was doing stuff with mobile phone. They were taking pictures at the slide or chatting with the colleagues or taking notes. So everybody was pretty engaged. Of course, if you would have other persons in the audience, like politicians, for example, you have to adjust your language. You have to adjust your arguments because this is really scientific workshop. So wouldn't be suitable for such a large, environment. So in the different events that I attended, I always appreciate how professional people are able to adjust their language when they have to share messages. So you have to be capable to spot the audience, understanding who is in front of you and which is the message that you want to transfer. Because we have many messages every time. And one of the errors that we make usually is that we want to give them all because we want to make sure that everything we think is transferred. Sometimes you have to focus
because you don't want to expose yourself to your peer scientists or engineers. And so you're trying to, in fact, to speak to them but you should speak to lay audiences now and then, or politicians now and
Yes, exactly. So in the conferences, the advantage is that you might have a very homogeneous audience. So you know that there are mostly engineers or managers that are working in the space industry, so you can easily understand the target. But if you start talking to a broader audience from the person that is just interested but doesn't know anything about the topic, or a politician person that needs to give you money to proceed for something, and engineer, so you have such an heterogeneous audience, the capability that I really want to achieve at some point, and I see in the NASA and ESA personnel at the different speech I attended, is to really study the audience, and now they are that good that maybe just a look it's enough for them. I'm not that good yet, but let's say I want to reach that level, and so you have to accept that some of the things you would like to say, you will be not able to say that in that moment because it's not the right moment. So for that conference, for that speech, for that audience, you have to focus on one or two ideas, one or two messages, because these are the ones that will reach the audience in the more efficient way. And also the target of your language, let's say how you look at the persons in the audience, and the slides you project, mathematical formulas or pictures or videos, as a different appeal. Of course, a science man or science woman will appreciate the formula because, of course, it's something they are familiar with. A politician man, a politician woman might enjoy the video where you are assembling the satellites, for example. And so this is something that I spot every time. And when I see some speaker that has this capability, I say, hey, he really got the point today. He knew which was the message to be transferred, and I think it succeeded. Maybe he had a lot of other things that he wanted to do, but and to say, but it's not important. And accepting this, it's a very good lesson. And let's say I hope that I will reach that level. And I think that's kind of the secret for this industry, because as Isa was mentioning before, the lobbying machine is part of the game. I mean, we are engineers, we build stuff, of course, but there is a machine behind convincing delegations and going to speak and to transfer the message, hey, this is happening. The Apophis, for example, the Apophis mission, the asteroid is happening, right?
That's an asteroid on course for Earth.
Yeah. The Apophis asteroid will do a very close Earth flyby in April 2029. Today we know the exact date. And it will be that close that we might see that with our eyes.
Naked eye.
Yeah, no. Naked eye. So it's really close to Earth. It's really close to Earth.
And it would be big trouble if it collided.
Sure, it was kind of a let's say potentially hazard object years ago. Now we have a precise trajectory that we know that it would not be colliding with Earth, but it will be that close that it's an unique opportunity to study it, to go there and to make science out of that. But of course, as the community was mentioning before, we need support for that. And it's not just, convincing this community that using an instrument or another will give you this science data. Of course, the community is let's say, how can I say that? Is hungry of data, right? So they want data and data and data. But you have to build the framework out of that. And this is involving also persons that are capable to speak, to lobby, and to send the right message. And I understood in the last years that this is part of the job. You have to be able to, again, build satellites, of course, otherwise we would not be here. But all the background has the same value in order to make this possible.
So how does the game that you're describing usually work? So now we have the Milani CubeSat, for example. This piece of hardware will exist very soon. But what's the work that needs to be done to get it into existence, to greenlight that project in the first place? Because I could imagine there's bazillions of different projects trying to get that tender, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of negotiating and pitching, and how does that work?
So to be honest, I was not really involved in that part, but I got, of course, all the framework from ESA. And of course, the advantage for us is that Italy decided to put money on this kind of mission. And so
that makes things easier.
This makes things easier, again, because there were 3 countries found in this mission. As I was mentioning, it was Italy, Czech Republic, and Finland. And so the fact that Italy put the larger part of money for that through the Italian Space Agency made the Italian primership easy. And so, of course, still we had to bid, so to submit a tender. It was an open competition, so we were not the only one. And so at that point, you have to show your talent and your knowledge and capability to do that. So this is where the industry comes to show the value. But behind that, there was, I'm pretty sure, because I know that there was ESA, again, lobbying into the Europe and, let's say, going through different ministerial conferences. And finally, the Italian delegation decided to fund this mission. And so all this was done before, even though we just let's say, we submitted a tender and we won. So, of course, you needed 2 things. You need the capability to execute, for which we were able to win the contract. And you need, of course, all the background allowing your country and your, delegation and institutions believing in that. And so giving the funding needed for this to happen. So both are needed. And until you don't work in the industry, you think that it's just a matter of being able at building. You have to have that, but it's not the only part of the game.
What's going on in Italy when it comes to science, when it comes to the support of such projects? Because now you're saying that the Italian government was proactively giving or funneling funding into that project. Why is there such an interest in Italy in, as I hear it, in the natural sciences in the first place? Do you have such a great educational system?
Well, I think that, first of all, I would say yes. We have a good program at the university for the space and the physics, etc. I have to say that in this particular case, Italy has an historical role in the space in Europe. So across Europe, together with Germany and France, that are historically the top 2, Italy is again one of the top 3. So the history and the tradition in the space industry in Italy is really large for the participation to international programs like the ISS has a lot of modules built in Italy. And let's say a lot of programs as important and crucial technologies from Italy. So we have a tradition, and I think that we need to be good in maintaining that. And there are some years that let's say this is let's say more easy to be followed because the government situation and the economical situation of the country is favorable, and so you can actually afford that. There are some times that the things are not that good. And so if you can see the ministerial conference, which is every 3 years at ESA, of course, you can see the trend in countries putting money for the space programs. And let's say, of course, also there is a balance. Some years is better, some years is worse. But let's say Italy is always, one of the large contributors. Then maybe of course, they decide where to put money. So let's say founding a program rather than the other. But typically is always present as a country. So
as a country.
Yeah, we are always there.
I had a fun moment at a gas station in Italy a couple of years ago.
Really?
It's how good stories start. So I filled up the car and was going inside to pay. And I had to wait for a moment because someone else was paying. And usually you have behind the cashier, you have all those magazines on display. And right next to the cashier, there was Dante's Inferno on display. And I'm like, in other countries, you have porn magazines at gas stations, not Dante's Inferno. So that was, I still remember it. I think it was 15 years ago. But still, it's still impressive how, I mean, like, was that maybe just one gas station because the person working there was a humanist? No, seriously, I'm just wondering if there is more to Italy when it comes to an interest and a favorable environment around the sciences. Is there something underneath also in the educational system? Because the educational system in many countries is under pressure at the moment. It doesn't seem to meet the standards of the 21st century. So how is that in Italy? If it's difficult, tell me. We just don't want to paint a too
no, of course. So
flowery picture here.
Yeah, I don't work in the school environment, so I don't think I have all the arguments to answer the question. But what I can tell is that the system that works at the university level, for example, we have a lot of good programs in the science part. There is still a good, let's say, a good engagement that needs to be done at the elementary school. I mean, when the child are very, let's say, young, in order to make them interested in the scientific topics, female more than the others. But I have to say that, for example, when it comes to, there was the open day here 2 days ago, and there was plenty of kids that they were pretty extremely excited about that. So I know that there are difficulties in the school system in Italy too. There are a lot of problems that again are relating to the economic condition, the social conditions, and the role of the teachers that is not recognized enough. The role of the family towards the school has changed in the years, but unfortunately I don't work in that environment and I don't have kids yet, so I cannot really speak for a personal experience. So you might ask this question in a few years and we will see if I have new arguments for you.
So who is Margherita Cardi? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I am from Rome. So I moved to
I envy you.
Yeah, I know, but let's say it's a very nice town
to visit.
To visit, yeah. You were the point. I mean, the living there it can be challenging. I know that if there are Romans listening, they will agree with me.
Because of the tourists.
Not just that, it's just that the logistics gets very complicated. So living in Rome in a daily basis, when you have, a full-time job, maybe you have kids, you have, your work is very far from your home. All the logistics is getting persons crazy. You have a lot of traffic and you spend a lot of time in the car. Public transportation are not working so well. So, living there, if you don't have a, neighborhood life, can be tough. But I discovered that when I moved out. So, and I will tell you the story now. So I grew up in Rome again, and I studied it in La Sapienza University, aerospace engineering. My first job was in a company that was called Vitrociset. They were in Rome, and they were responsible for the ground segment of the Vega launcher. So I spent a couple of years in French Guiana at the European spaceport during the second and third launch of Vega.
This sounds like very, very nice, very much like paradise.
I mean, being the first job was pretty, a crash test towards the work environment, but it was, of course, very interesting. I was really happy to be there. But after... I did study satellites in my let's say academic path, And so I was by chance then in this company doing ground systems. So it was not really what I was supposed to, but it was my first job. I didn't have really the luxury to, select at that moment. So I was in Guyana and I had a really fun time in over there working on the ground segment of Vega. So during the launch campaign, and it was the very first one. So it was pretty still a new thing. But after that, I understood that I wanted to move back to the satellite. So I came back to Rome. I spent another couple of years there in the same company doing other stuff. But in the meantime, I always had this feeling that I was, aiming at coming back to the spacecraft world. And this is how I met Tyvak, actually. Tyvak was, this was 2015. This was a company made by one person. It was literally a one-man show. Fabio is actually our CEO at the moment, but he was the first employee of Tyvak. And I met him at a conference, and he was just having a speech speaking about Tyvak, and there was we are hiring everywhere. So I went there to introduce myself and to share my CV and business cards, etc. And then after a few months, I was offered a job, and of course it was in Torino. So at that time, I remember that I was almost 30. I had a full-time job in my hometown. My family was next to me. I had friends, and the company was big and apparently solid. And I was thinking about moving in a town I'd never been before, in a company where I was like literally the third employee, a desk in an office, and I remember that period. Everybody was telling me, "But what the fuck you are doing?" I mean, are you sure about that? Because it seems like a big bet. And so but then I was convinced. I mean, I was just trying to get some time to really convince myself on a practical point of view. But I already decided, so I wanted to go there and to build something. I wanted to be part of something growing from the beginning. And so, I did it, and I say to myself, look, let's give yourself 2 years, 3 years maximum. Either this fails tremendously, either this becomes a success. In either case, just go. And so I made this. I joined Tyvak in 2016, and here I am now.
The rest is history.
Yes. Managing one of the most amazing missions, managing other equally amazing missions in Tyvak. We are now 60, and sometimes I don't recall the name of everybody, which is strange for me. And so I think that it was a good choice.
Good.
Finally, it was a good choice.
Good. And now, are you ready for what's coming up with the the CubeSat? Because is it going to land?
So
this one? Because this could be a nerve-wracking situation anyways.
Yeah, so the thing is that since we started later, we didn't have this requirement to land. So the other one will have to.
The Juventus
CubeSat will have to. I think that we will try anyway, but let's say this is kind of my last thing at the moment.
So no one is expecting you to land, but you will maybe try if everything is done.
Everybody wants us to land. Everybody wants us to land, and I would love to, but I have other priorities before. So I need to make sure that we get delivered, we get launched, we get safe to the asteroid, we do our mission, and then as an experimental phase, of course, I will be pretty excited to land.
But I mean, like, don't you need like the gear capability to land?
No.
Or can anyone do that?
No, let's say we are just, they just want us to touch the surface and understand what is the response.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not minimizing. It's a tough task, but we don't have to...
Without breaking it.
Without breaking it, ideally, yes. Why not? It will be nice. But yes, we don't have to build any special, landing system for this mission. It's just not going to happen. We are the risky part of the mission. We are 2 drones that are over there, and of course, HERA wants us to go the closer possible to the asteroid. And of course, I'm pretty happy to do that, but it's just it's kind of an experimental phase at the end of my main mission. So we will see.
So it's a nice add-on.
Yes, exactly.
So it feels like the two CubeSats are the kids of HERA.
Yes.
And HERA is giving away.
Yes. That's exactly what looked like. Actually, HERA is a she.
A goddess.
Yeah, a goddess, exactly. So HERA is a mother craft. We call that like that.
A mothership.
A mothership, exactly. And Milani and Juventus are the two babies. So that's exactly how we feel and how we were treated along the project, also in the interaction with all the other entities. We are two instruments, of course, but we have to then have our free-flying, let's say, moment. So we will be in the HERA body for a long time, then we will be released, but still attached to our mother. And then we will be released. So it's a pretty nice metaphor of life, right? So yes, I would say this is a good way of looking at the mission.
How do you feel about letting her or it, maybe it's a boy or a girl, the CubeSat go?
I don't know. I always thought Milani was a boy. I don't know why. Milani is a boy. I don't know why, but and I don't know Juventus. I mean, I don't know how GomSpace
needs to be a girl.
Yes, maybe it needs to be a girl, but
Rome,
I don't know.
Rome, the twins, it was two boys. So
yes,
so you.
Yes, and actually, you know what? When we did submit the proposal, we were called HERA CubeSat 2. Because we were the second one, the younger one, because the other one already existed and the name was Juventus. And so during the proposal phase, we didn't manage to have the time to think about a name. And so we kept using the acronym HERA CubeSat 2, let's say. And then we had to think about a name, right? So and we thought about still be related to the mythological environment, etc. So we were, brainstorming a little bit. But then ESA came and say, "Hey, we would like to propose you to dedicate this mission to a great man who was contributing to this mission, Andrea Milani. He's a scientific person that passed away in 2018, I guess. So I didn't have the pleasure to meet him, but he was the first one, I think." Let's say, having this concept of a defense mission, planetary defense mission made about two missions, so a kinetic impactor and a chaser, another mission that is going around to see what's happening. And so after that, we couldn't say no, yes, it's a very nice thing. Even if my team and I didn't meet him, we, of course, went to study his history, and we were very proud about having his name on our mission. And the funny thing is that that in Italy there is the football is kind of the main sport, and we have Juventus, one of the
Torino.
teams in Torino, exactly. Yeah. And then we have Milan, the Milan in Milano. So let's say everybody's convinced that we did this for this reason, but it's not at all that. It sounds like, but it's not. And so this is why Milani...
It adds audience to the thing. You got all the soccer fail.
You have to adjust your language for the audience. And this is a joke that sometimes I have to make based on the audience I have. But yes.
How do you feel about rocket launches? Do you watch them live? Do you have the nerves?
Yes, I do. I have to say my experience in Guyana, for example, I have been there 2 years and I saw a lot of launches live. So I was working for Vega. So Vega, I was in the control room. But the other two, Soyuz and Ariane 5, we always went to, the observation point for the launches. And so I had this extremely nice experience to see launch lives. And I have to say that Ariane 5, it's huge. You really feel it in your body when it comes to launch. So it's very nice. And since then, I really cannot avoid to look at the launch live. Of course, sometimes it's in the middle of the night and it's not easy. But of course, when I have a launch on one of our missions, typically we are all together in the in the office. Also because if there is a satellite that we are managing, we will have to, manage the operations in 2 or 3 orbits. So we have to be there. And so, yeah, I still remember the first launch was 2019 in December. I was crazy about that. It was the 11th of December. And there was the first CubeSat launched by Italian team. We were really emotional about that. We were all together in the office, and the operations were lasting a few weeks. And actually, we did the Christmas lunch with our family in the control center. I mean, in the kitchen, right next to the control center, because we had the shift and we couldn't really move. So yes, I always like to see the launches, and if we have a mission on a launch, for sure
we'll watch it.
Yes.
What do you make of Elon's Starship coming up?
I'm excited, to be honest. I can't wait to see that. And I remember the first time that I saw the first re-entry of the first stage. This was something that I loved, to be honest. And of course, now it's kind of normal. So every time there is a launch, you maybe don't even wait for the first stage to come back. But the first time was very interesting.
Impressive.
Impressive. I was in a train and the line was not very good, and so I was panicked that I was missing that. And then luckily I pick a good moment of the route, and so I could see that. It was amazing. And I'm looking with interest at all this achievement from them, because of course they are a little bit ahead of Europe. So it's always nice to see, what they are doing and trying to understand what we can do also from Europe on this domain.
Wonderful. I do have 2 questions still. You may know which ones they are.
I might know.
So first of all, would you be a traveler to distant planets, to the moon maybe? Would you go if the call came right now?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I will. Yes, I would.
Considering the fact that it's probably going to be a very boring journey after the first couple of very inspiring moments, but you get used to it. So just imagine you're in that capsule, in that spaceship for a couple of weeks. And you'd need to entertain yourself with something. What kind of music would you want to listen to? Because you may know we have that playlist on Spotify, the playlist for the aspiring space traveler. And
you're right.
You're entitled to pick one tune now, which you wouldn't want to miss on your interstellar journey.
So for that journey, I will pick Rocket Man, I think. I mean, it's a classic one, maybe also, not very original. I have to say that I have not a favorite song, but I have a favorite song for each period of my life.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, to be honest, I'm kind of in a loop with a song about Green Day. It's a Good Riddance. That's the name of the song. And I don't know why for these weeks, I cannot hear anything else. So I'm just having this in a loop, and I will get tired about that at some point. I will switch to the other one. So yes.
Wonderful. And now question number 2. I'm not telling you anything new when I'm talking about espressos. You're Italian. You're the authority behind all this. But the Space Café podcast is sort of our auditory coffee place. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you take an espresso to energize yourself. Now, why don't you share an espresso for the mind with me, with the audiences, and you can share whatever kind of topic you want to pick.
Whatever.
Something you feel like that could be energizing to all the folks who are listening right now. To the audience.
Wow. That's more difficult than the song. So maybe the first thing that comes to my mind is it's a lesson that I recently learned, and is helping me a lot in my professional and personal life. This is something that I have heard for since the beginning of my memory. So it's one of the sentences that you maybe get repeated a lot, that everything changes. But I didn't really get this meaning until recently. And the thing is that I learned that some things that is worrying you a lot today will not worry you again in maybe 1 hour, maybe 1 day, 1 week, 1 year. I don't know. Depends on the kind of issue. Everything changes suddenly, and so we should not worry that much about things that are worrying us. But we should not focus that much on that, trying to find all the solutions, all the strategies, all the baseline option A, B, C, which is something that I do for my job. But at some point I realized that things, sometimes and very often, things get solved alone. Something that you are not solving today, tomorrow maybe it's deprecated, not more important, or solved by someone else that did something that you didn't consider. So there are that many interdependencies with persons, actions, weather conditions, the car that is broken today and you cannot go to work, and so something else is covering that for you. A lot of small coincidences that are not maybe coincidence that will change the context for you. So, and on the other hand, we should really enjoy things when things are in a good shape, in a good moment, because even this one is going to finish. And so in my professional life, there are moments of the mission that everything is looking great. And even, there are issues. This is just a great day and you should, follow the flow. Tomorrow will be a bad one because something is broken, or you don't get funding for some mission, etc. But this is just a moment. It will not be like that forever. So there will be another moment in which things are hype, and this is, I think, it's also valid on the personal life. So since I tend to worry much, let's say, having experience in that on my skin helped me creating an history. And when I'm worried for something, sometimes I just don't do anything about that. Sometimes you cannot. But when it's possible, maybe just leave the flow, go, follow the flow. Maybe tomorrow is still important, maybe not, and you will figure it out. And you will get the right instrument when it's the right time. And so this is something that I found illuminating. I don't know if it's the right word in English. It was kind of a revealing for me when it happened to my personal life, to my person. But it's something that you can hear about, like a common sentence. This is kind of something that you hear since forever, since the beginning of my memory. But
once you get to feel it with your own body,
you really understand.
You understand.
And you get the sense, and you create an history in your life, and this can happen again. I mean, you have it in your own luggage of life. So yeah, I don't know if I explained myself correctly. It's something that I'm still trying to give a shape to this thought, because it was a really recent lesson from my personal life that I'm moving and translating into my professional life, and it works. But I don't know if I was clear enough.
No, absolutely. I'm just wondering, I think it still matters your attitude to change. That matters still, because are you clinging on to the status quo, or are you ready to throw yourself into that dynamic moment of change, like throwing yourself into the waves? I think this needs a lot of boldness to do. And I see lots of leaders who would try to cling on to the past as they have done it for many, many years. But then I think you are running the risk to fail. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, always. In the two scenarios that you just said, I think that my nature, my nature is the first one. So being a little bit blocked and want to control things and make everything as it is now. But again, recently I had a very important lesson of my life, and I was forced to live with the change. And I was terrified. I was not prepared. I was scared. But since I had to, I learned how to. And so once you get this lesson and once you get this instrument, it's something that now is yours. Nobody will ever throw it away from you. It's like your signature. It's unique. And so it's kind of let's say, I would say an instrument that I really got, and I think needs to be used in all the spheres of life: professional, personal, friendship, relations. This helps. This is working for me at least. And being in the flow, being in the waves, and understanding that, again, today that's the situation, but you never know what's happening tomorrow. So, and this is in contrast with my work. I have to plan. So my work is to plan. But even when I plan and when I'm realizing that I'm digging into the detail of, okay, if this happens, then this will happen. And then, so I have to do this at this point, etc. I'm planning too much. The level of detail is too low, and it's impossible to foresee everything else. So I have to stop one level before and give the chance to life and the surrounding and other people and casuality also to play that game, their game, and play their role. And I have to play with that.
You're reminding me of a line from a song I memorized because it's so strong for me. There is an American band called Korn, a very loud one, long hair, loud one, but still a very beautiful line. Everything changes, but maybe just rearranges. And I think this is very strong.
That's very interesting.
It's very strong. So it's just rearranging.
It's a good way to put in word, I think, what I said for the last 20 minutes, maybe without a clear conclusion. But yes, it's true. It's rearranging, the roles change, person change, the surrounding change, every time with no advice, with no notice. So I'm not saying we should be
it's like a
constantly alert. Yes, it's true. And I'm not saying we should be constantly in alert mood, because in this way life will be a mess, a disaster. We need to live with the knowledge that who knows what will happen. So you can do the best of your work, the best of your personal life with the instrument you have now, but at some point everything will change. You will get other instruments, other inputs, persons will join, persons will leave, the work will change, maybe your company closes and whatever. I mean, there are a lot of varieties, from the car that is not starting that in the morning to a big change as a job one that you have to move or to relocate in another country. You never know. And since for more than 30 years, I was planning every single thing, and now this is completely new for me. I'm still getting familiar with that, but I have to say, is less, is easier. Is less. I am less tired. I don't know what's the word to get that. I mean, life is easier in this way if you accept that, because before I was tired. Basically, mentally exhausted about thinking about all the variables. And sometimes I still see that my mind tends to that direction, but likely I'm learning how not to, when it's possible, of course.
Wonderful. Margherita Cardi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Markus. Very nice interview. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed a lot. What's the time now? Because
1 hour, 18 minutes.
And that brings us to a close on today's cosmic journey. We've traveled alongside ESA's ambitious projects, delved into the depths of space, and witnessed the power of international collaboration in defending our pale blue dot. But the saga doesn't end here. Keep your telescopes trained on the skies and your podcast feeds tuned to Space Café. Because in our next episode, we're venturing even further into the realm of planetary defense. Join me as we sit down with NASA's own Andy Rifkin, a leading figure in the world of asteroid research. We'll be unpacking the thrills and challenges of DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and NASA's proactive stance in the celestial shield guarding our Earth. What does it take to nudge an asteroid off course? How does one prepare for a cosmic game of snooker with the fate of our planet in the balance? Find out in the third installment of our asteroid series, where science meets the front lines of planetary defense. Until then, keep looking up, for the next page in our astronomical adventure is about to turn, and it's one you don't want to miss. Clear skies, and see you beyond the horizon. Bye-bye, my friends.